Steve, let's move on to our last topic today. Hong Kong back in the news again. Record population fall has seen its sharpest annual drop in population, partially due to the COVID controls and also political elements. Wow. They lost 1.6% last year actually, of the total population. What does this say about the future of Hong Kong and how people are viewing life there?
Well, you know, I was just having lunch at a conference with a friend of mine who's lived in Hong Kong for decades, like 20 years, you know, financial services. He's moving to Singapore with his family. And I said, look, is Hong Kong becoming just another Chinese city like Shenzhen, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Beijing, Shanghai? He said, no, Hong Kong's not becoming another Chinese city. Hong Kong's now a suburb of Shenzhen. That's all it is.
Wow.
He said, so everybody, he said, well, yes, you know, the exodus is happening everywhere. And he's coming to Singapore, as are so many people who are leaving Hong Kong, not just Westerners. It is, you know, Chinese as well, be it mainland or Hong Kongers who are coming to Singapore, going to other places. So this is a huge issue for Hong Kong. And I don't know I don't think it can ever go back to the way it was because of what you learned from COVID, plus what you see out of the national security law.
Well, I've seen this comment many times that China is almost prepared to write off Hong Kong politically and economically as if to make a statement. I mean, what is your take on that, Steve? Because they're not exactly doing a great deal to prop it up, as it were.
Well, and that's why I think that people say, oh, well, when the COVID restrictions get lifted in Hong Kong, and they still have hotel quarantines if you come in to Hong Kong. It's 3 days now as opposed to 7. But it shows that Hong Kong cannot make any major decisions for itself. The decisions in Hong Kong are going to be made in Beijing. And because the decisions are going to get made in Beijing, it is going to be a Chinese-centric decision, not a how do we advance the Asia's world city, as Hong Kong said and was. And so I think the lesson from COVID is that, do you want to put all your eggs in one basket if you are a business, Chinese business, a Western business, a Japanese business, whatever it is? Are you going to want to have your headquarters in Hong Kong? What happens if you get shut down again? And it's going to get shut down. That decision's not going to be made in Hong Kong. So, of course, people will keep a presence in Hong Kong. Will still be a very important city. It might be a regional city. It's not going to be the global city that it was, and that's going to that benefit's going to accrue to Singapore. I don't know if you said, there was a really interesting survey that Black Box, and I know you've had them on before, came out with the top 5 threats facing Singapore from people who live in Singapore. Number 1, cost of living. Number 2, inflation and price rises. Number 3, aging population. Number 4, uncertainty about 4G, the 4th generation and its leadership capabilities. And number 5 is having to choose between the U.S. and China. So that's where, the businesses are concerned being in Singapore, because when you're in Hong Kong, you don't have to choose. Hong Kong's not going to choose between the U.S. and China. Hong Kong is China. And that's the difference.
Steve, back in 96, 97, I was living in Hong Kong. We were covering the handover, of course. And, a bunch of the boys would go out for beers at the Captain's Bar in the Mandarin Oriental Hotel. And, the discussion that all of us
Could you be any more expat in that conversation? I mean, you might as well wear a sign saying expat across your forehead.
It was just Neil, what everybody did.
Neil, they were wearing their Foster Grants when they went out.
But the discussion there and all over Hong Kong was, the Chinese will never mess up Hong Kong. It's worth too much. Too much money is generated here. Too many businesses are here. Everybody was quite confident that no matter what else happened, the Chinese government in Beijing would not sacrifice the financial and economic health and well-being and ability to generate of Hong Kong. And it just seems, now COVID notwithstanding, right? But it just seems that aside from that, over the decades now, it has been anything but that. They've been totally willing to sacrifice that. Am I getting that wrong? And when you look at the chambers, the American Chambers of Commerce over Asia, which you are now chairman, what's the feeling among the chamber members?
Well, I would say what's changed is that China is so much bigger has so much more economic heft, has so much,
Mm.
more businesses doing that. So Hong Kong is less important because China is so much more important. China is so much further ahead than it was, back when you were a kid running around Hong Kong. And so that's what the big, the big change. And so it makes sense, right, from a Chinese perspective, and from a Communist Party perspective, of Hong Kong's relative importance is much less now than it was. China becoming resilient is much more important. And where the U.S. and the West has put sanctions on Hong Kong, the Chinese government doesn't want to have that out there as a lever for the West. So you bring it all within China. So it's just completely changed. The city will never be what it was 20, 30 years ago. It'll still be an important city. It'll still be a great city to go to. There'll still be conferences there. But you're seeing all of that coming to Singapore now. You're seeing conference after conference after conference moving out of Hong Kong, coming to Singapore. You're seeing the financial services, which was the strength of Hong Kong, coming to Singapore. And that brings all the challenges, of course, here to Singapore, which is rising prices.
Business loves stability and predictability, right?
Yeah.
And finally, Steve, is it state law in California to wear sunglasses? I've always wondered this, I've always wondered this about California. There we go.
I got off the plane and they were like, "Where are your sunglasses?" I said, "Oh my God, I left them back in Singapore. Here you go."
There you go. Customs.
Here's a pair of Ray-Bans for you.
There you go.
Although,
right.
Neil, now, did you ever see the best movie, my favorite movie?
Get
was
Shorty.
The Robert no. Robert De Niro, Charles Grodin, Midnight Run.
Midnight Run. Great film. Yes. Love it.
Agent Foster Grant. Because that's
yes. Right. Got it now. Yes.
Steve, thanks for your time today. Enjoy your time with your family there, and hello to everybody. And we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Off to dinner and a beer out on the marina.
Sounds good. Enjoy. Take care.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
International News Review.